We're a rescue team, not assassins. Now, what do we gotta do?
Predator from 1987 is one of the most legendary action movies ever made. It has explosions, muscle-bound heroes, a creepy alien hunter, and some of the most quotable lines in movie history. However, behind all the intense jungle action and cool sci-fi effects, some weird and surprising things went on during filming. From secret workouts to bloodthirsty leeches to movie magic that still holds up today, this film has a lot more going on than meets the eye. Whether you've seen it 10 times or you're just discovering it, these 20 weird facts will make you look at Predator in a whole new way. Number 20. Jean-Claude Van Damme was the original Predator. One of the strangest and most entertaining behind-the-scenes facts about Predator is that the original actor cast to play the alien hunter was none other than Jean-Claude Van Damme. Yes, before he was known for high-flying kicks and splits in movies like Bloodsport and Kickboxer, Van Damme was sweating in a rubber suit deep in the Mexican jungle, playing a creature no one had quite figured out yet. At the time, Van Damme was a little-known martial artist hoping for his big break in Hollywood. The producers of Predator thought it would be interesting to have the alien move with speed and agility, more like a ninja than a lumbering monster. Van Damme was hired not for his acting but for his ability to do impressive stunts and dynamic movements. The idea was that the Predator would be sleek and insect-like, an agile alien assassin who could disappear into the trees and strike with precision. However, the suit was a disaster. The first design was awkward, uncomfortable, and looked more like a giant red lobster than an intergalactic hunter. Van Damme reportedly hated it. He also did not enjoy the jungle heat, the lack of visibility in the costume, or the fact that no one would ever see his face. According to crew members, he was constantly complaining and eventually quit or was fired, depending on who tells the story. In the end, the entire creature design was scrapped and replaced with the now iconic look created by special effects legend Stan Winston. Van Damme was out, and Kevin Peter Hall was brought in to fill the Predator's shoes, or rather claws. It is one of those bizarre Hollywood moments where a casting choice almost changed movie history. Imagine if the Predator had done spinning kicks. We might be talking about a very different film. Number 19. The original Predator design was terrible. Many people may disagree, but the original design for the Predator creature was absolutely terrible. We are talking about a suit that looked so awkward and unthreatening that it nearly derailed the entire production. Before the sleek, dreadlocked, mandible-faced alien we all know today existed, the Predator was imagined as a tall, insect-like creature with a long neck, bent legs, and a head that resembled a giant space bug. The intention was to make it look fast and otherworldly, something agile that could leap through the jungle and hunt with stealth. What they got instead was something that looked like it belonged in a low-budget kids' show. The original suit was made out of red foam rubber, and it was designed that way so it could easily be keyed out in post-production for invisibility effects. However, even beyond the color, the shape and movement of the creature just did not work. It lacked any sense of menace or weight. When Jean-Claude Van Damme was inside the costume trying to move with martial arts grace, it looked even more ridiculous. The creature was supposed to be terrifying, but it made the crew laugh instead. Eventually, production was shut down so the Predator could be completely redesigned. That is when Stan Winston, the legendary special effects artist behind films like Aliens and The Terminator, was brought in to save the day. Inspired by a sketch James Cameron made of a creature with mandibles, Winston created the now iconic Predator look. The new design was taller, heavier, and far more intimidating, and it gave the alien the hunter presence it had been missing. If the original design had made it to the final cut, Predator might have become a forgotten B-movie. Instead, thanks to a complete visual overhaul, it became one of the most iconic sci-fi action films of all time. Number 18. The jungle was freezing. Do you remember the jungle where Predator was filmed? Well, that location was freezing cold. That sounds completely wrong at first. After all, the movie takes place in a steamy Central American rainforest, where every character is dripping in sweat and the air seems thick with heat. However, in reality, Many of the scenes were filmed in the mountains near Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, where nighttime temperatures could drop unexpectedly, especially during the rainy season. So while the characters looked like they were burning up, the actors were often shivering between takes. This was especially tough on the Predator actor, Kevin Peter Hall, who stood over 7 feet tall and had to wear a massive creature suit made of foam and latex. The suit had no ventilation and would trap moisture, making it heavy and miserable to wear for hours. At night, the temperature would dip so low that Hall would be completely soaked and freezing inside a costume designed to make him look like he came from a hot alien planet. Arnold Schwarzenegger also suffered, especially during the scenes where his character is covered in mud to hide his body heat. The mud was fake, made from pottery clay and other cold materials, and Arnold spent hours lying in it during night shoots. He later said his body temperature dropped, and they had to warm him with lamps and blankets between takes. The cold conditions were one of many unexpected challenges the cast and crew faced while filming what was supposed to look like a tropical hell. From the outside, it seems like a gritty, sweaty jungle thriller, but behind the scenes, people were more worried about staying warm than staying cool. It is one of those strange ironies that adds a whole new layer to rewatching the film. Number 17. It was originally called Hunter. Before it was called Predator, the movie had a much simpler and less exciting title, Hunter. That was the name attached to the original screenplay written by brothers Jim and John Thomas. The script was a rough but intriguing concept about an alien visiting Earth to stalk and murder the most dangerous prey it could find, humans. The idea was fresh, especially in the wake of other science fiction action hits, but the name Hunter did not quite capture the raw, intense energy the film eventually delivered. At first glance, Hunter sounds reasonable enough. It reflects the alien's purpose on Earth and hints at the primal chase that drives the story. However, when production got rolling and the project evolved into a full-blown action thriller with elite soldiers, gruesome murders, and a terrifying alien presence, the name started to feel too tame. It lacked edge and did not stand out. The studio knew they needed a title that had more bite, something that would grab attention and give audiences a better idea of the danger waiting in the jungle. That is when the name Predator came into the picture. It was more aggressive, more intense, and it shifted the focus from a simple hunt to something more feral and menacing. A predator does not just hunt, it stalks, studies, and strikes with lethal purpose. The title helped shape the tone of the film, giving the creature an identity that was more terrifying than just another alien with a gun. It was not just about what the creature did, but what it represented. Number 16. Shane Black was cast just to fix the script. Would you believe that Shane Black was not really cast in Predator for his acting skills? He was brought onto the film for a completely different reason, to secretly fix the script. At the time, Shane Black was a rising screenwriter in Hollywood. He had just written Lethal Weapon, which soon became a massive hit, and his sharp, witty dialogue had caught the attention of producers. When Predator was getting ready to shoot, the script was solid in concept, but still needed some polishing. Instead of hiring a full-time writer to be on set, the studio came up with a clever solution. They cast Shane Black in a small acting role as Hawkins, the bespectacled communications guy in the squad, so he could be on set at all times without drawing attention. This way, he could do unofficial rewrites and punch up dialogue whenever needed, especially for the scenes between the soldiers. Black agreed, thinking it might be a fun experience and a change of pace from his usual writing routine. Ironically, Black's character is also the first one murdered by the Predator, which meant his acting time was short, but his behind-the-scenes influence was much bigger. He added little touches of humor and personality that helped define the macho camaraderie of the group, including the now infamous dirty jokes that his character tells in the film. These jokes were straight out of Black's unique style and gave the otherwise intense movie some unexpected levity. Number 15. The Predator's blood was made of glow-stick fluid. The Predator's glowing green blood is not just an eye-catching visual, it is a weird piece of practical movie magic that came from a very low-tech, very creative solution. The Predator's blood was made from glow-stick fluid. That's right. The same stuff kids crack open on Halloween and wave around in the dark, was used to give the creature its strange and otherworldly look. During production, the filmmakers wanted the predator to bleed in a way that felt completely alien. They needed something that would pop on camera and not look like typical red or dark monster goo. After some experimenting, they landed on glow stick fluid as the answer. The team cracked open dozens of glow sticks and poured the glowing liquid into small containers. To give it a little more substance and stickiness, they mixed it with KY jelly, which is often used in film for creating slime or realistic wet effects. The result was perfect. The glowing mixture looked like nothing anyone had seen before, and when it splattered onto leaves or dripped down tree bark, it gave the impression that this creature was truly not of this world. It also worked beautifully under low light conditions, which was essential for the film's dark jungle setting. The effect became iconic. That eerie green glow told the audience that the predator was nearby, wounded but still dangerous. It added a whole new level of tension to every scene where it appeared. It is an excellent example of how practical effects, even with simple ingredients, can become unforgettable. All it took was some creativity, a handful of glow sticks, and a little KY jelly to create one of the most distinct alien features in sci-fi history. Number 14. Sonny Landham needed a bodyguard for everyone else. Sonny Landham, the character who played Billy, was quiet, mysterious, and clearly not someone to mess with. As it turns out, Sonny Landham was not acting all that much. Off-screen, he was known to be intense, unpredictable, and more than a little volatile. His reputation was so notorious that the studio made an unusual decision. They hired a bodyguard just to keep an eye on him. What makes this story even weirder is that the bodyguard was not there to protect Sonny from the jungle or overzealous fans. He was hired specifically to protect the rest of the cast and crew from Sonny. The insurance company backing the production reportedly insisted on it. They had heard stories about his past behavior on other film sets and were concerned that his temper or impulsive actions might lead to legal or safety issues. So the bodyguard's job was to shadow Landham at all times and ensure the situation remained peaceful. Despite this, Landham reportedly got along fine with many of his co-stars, and his performance in the film added a lot of quiet tension. His demise scene, where he takes off his gear and prepares to face the predator alone, became one of the film's most iconic moments. However, behind the scenes, people were walking on eggshells. It is the kind of Hollywood story that sounds like an urban legend, but it really happened. When an actor needs a bodyguard, not for protection, but to keep everyone else safe from him, you know you are dealing with a production that was just as intense behind the camera as it was in front of it. Number 13. Arnold lost over 20 pounds during filming. This was not part of some planned transformation for the role. It was the result of brutal conditions in the Mexican jungle, a strict diet, and an intense physical schedule that pushed even someone like Arnold to his limit. At the time, Arnold was in peak shape. He had just finished other action-heavy roles and was known for his massive physique, but Predator was a different beast. Filming took place in rugged terrain near Puerto Vallarta, where the environment was both harsh and unpredictable. The days were long, the nights were cold, and the cast often had to perform in wet clothes, thick mud, and tight spaces under intense pressure. To make matters more extreme, Arnold was also preparing for his upcoming wedding to Maria Shriver. He adhered to a very strict diet during filming to ensure he looked his absolute best on the big day. That meant no alcohol, very controlled meals, and a consistent workout routine, even in the jungle. Combine that with the constant sweating, physical exertion, and high-stress environment of the shoot, and the pounds started dropping fast. Throughout production, Arnold lost more than 20 pounds, something that is especially noticeable if you compare early and late scenes in the film. Despite the weight loss, his performance never suffered. If anything, it added to the gritty realism of his character. Dutch looks like a man who is being pushed to his physical and mental breaking point, and that was not entirely acting. The jungle took its toll on everyone, even the Terminator himself. Number 12. The Predator's clicks were voiced by Peter Cullen. This might be unexpected, but Peter Cullen voiced the creepy clicking sounds made by the alien in Predator. If that name sounds familiar, it is because he is the legendary voice behind Optimus Prime from the Transformers series. Yes, the same voice actor who gave life to the noble leader of the Autobots also created the eerie, insect-like clicks of one of the most terrifying creatures in sci-fi history. When the filmmakers were finalizing the sound design for the Predator, they knew the creature needed a unique voice. It did not speak any language, so it had to communicate its presence with something that felt intelligent but not human. They brought in Peter Cullen, who had years of experience bringing non-human characters to life through sound. He came up with the clicking noises by imagining a mix of crab-like and reptilian vocalizations, creating a strange and unsettling rhythm that felt both alien and alive. Cullen has said in interviews that he was inspired by the sounds of animals, particularly a dying crab he once heard while scuba diving. The result was simple, but incredibly effective. Those clicks became instantly iconic and added a whole new level of tension to every scene the Predator appeared in. Number 11. The handshake became a meme, decades later. Surprisingly, one of the most unexpectedly legendary moments in Predator is not a murder scene or an alien reveal. It is a handshake. Early in the film, when Arnold Schwarzenegger's character Dutch meets up with Carl Weathers' character Dylan, the two men clasp hands in a greeting so exaggerated and intense that it has become pure internet gold. Their biceps bulge, veins pop, and the camera zooms in as their arms lock in, what can only be described as the most macho handshake in movie history. At the time, the scene was meant to show mutual respect and power between the two characters, both former soldiers now on opposite sides of a government operation. However, it was shot with such slow-motion drama and testosterone-fueled intensity that it almost felt like a flex-off. Neither man wanted to be outdone by the other, and you can see that physical competition in the way their muscles practically fight each other during the handshake. Decades later, the moment exploded into meme culture. The image of Dutch and Dylan locking arms became a template for internet jokes, often used to show two unlikely people or groups finding common ground. The meme has been reinterpreted thousands of times, but always carries that same over-the-top energy that made it so iconic in the first place. What started as a serious scene between two characters became one of the most recognizable and parodied moments from the entire film. It is a perfect example of how a single shot, when done just right or maybe just over the top enough, can live forever in pop culture. Number 10. Kevin Peter Hall was over 7 feet tall. To be exact, Kevin Peter Hall stood at 7 feet 2 inches. That is not just tall in the everyday sense, that is towering. Basketball player meets cinematic monster tall. His height was not just a fun piece of trivia, it was absolutely crucial to making the Predator feel as terrifying and otherworldly as it did. When the filmmakers decided to scrap the original creature design and go in a more physically imposing direction, they needed someone who could fill out the new, larger suit with real presence. Kevin Peter Hall was not just tall. He moved with a kind of deliberate grace that made the Predator feel like a skilled hunter, rather than a lumbering brute. He brought elegance and menace to every step, every tilt of the head, and every slow turn. That combination of size and control made the Predator believable as a creature that could outmatch even Arnold Schwarzenegger in a fight. What makes it even more impressive is that Hall had to perform under layers of prosthetics, latex, and animatronic parts. He was practically sealed inside a monster suit, often in intense jungle heat, but you would never know it watching the film. His physicality gave the Predator its soul. He was also known for being incredibly kind and professional on set, which made his transformation into such a deadly alien even more fascinating. He was more than just a guy in a costume. He was the reason the Predator looked and felt real. His towering frame and quiet intensity turned a science fiction villain into a cinematic legend, and without him, the movie simply would not have been the same. Number 9. They filmed in Mexico, but faked the heat. Although the movie Predator looks like it was filmed in the middle of a sweltering, unforgiving jungle, the heat was mostly movie magic. The film was shot in Mexico, specifically near Puerto Vallarta and the surrounding rainforests, which gave it that lush, dangerous jungle atmosphere. Here is the twist. It was not hot when they were filming. It was often cold, damp, and incredibly uncomfortable in ways that had nothing to do with heat exhaustion. The cast and crew had all prepared for blistering temperatures. The story, after all, follows elite commandos slogging through a suffocating Central American jungle while being hunted by an invisible alien. Sweat was supposed to be pouring off their faces. The air was supposed to feel thick and heavy. However, the weather on location refused to cooperate. Some days it was chilly, other days it was rainy and gloomy. None of it matched the blistering heat the script called for. So the production team had to fake it. They used water spritzers and glistening makeup to keep the actors looking sweaty. Lighting was carefully adjusted to give scenes a sun-blasted look. The actors even had to change the way they moved and breathed, pretending to be drenched in heat when they were actually shivering between takes. It was a strange contradiction, acting like you are melting while trying not to freeze. The end result was so convincing that most viewers have no idea the actors were fighting off the cold rather than the heat. That illusion of unbearable jungle temperature helped sell the tension and claustrophobia of the hunt. It is one of those little bits of movie trickery that reminds you how much work goes into creating a believable world, even if that means sweating in the cold. Number 8. The invisibility effect was old-school movie magic. Today, you might assume the Predator's invisibility effect was done with digital wizardry, but back then the team had no modern CGI. Instead, they relied on old-school movie magic that was clever, complicated, and incredibly time-consuming. The result still holds up as one of the most memorable sci-fi effects of the decade. The idea was to make the Predator blend into the jungle as if it were cloaked, bending light around itself like some futuristic chameleon. To achieve that look, the crew had to film each scene multiple times. First, they would shoot the scene with the actors and jungle set as normal. Then they would reshoot the same scene, but this time with a special red suit that looked completely ridiculous in person. It was bright red because red was the furthest color from green on the color spectrum, which made it easier to isolate during post-production. That red-suited version of the Predator was later removed frame by frame and replaced with a distorted image of the background. It created the illusion that something invisible was moving through the trees, slightly warping its surroundings. This technique is called chroma key compositing, and back in the late 80s, it was cutting edge. They even added ripple effects and shimmer to give the invisibility a sense of motion. The whole process took weeks for just a few seconds of usable footage, but it was worth it. The Predator's cloak became iconic and was unlike anything audiences had seen before. It did not just hide the creature, it made it feel supernatural and terrifying, all without a single pixel of CGI, just cameras, red suits, and a lot of patience. Number 7. The jungle was crawling with leeches. This sounds like something the Predator itself would have designed to mess with people, but it was all too real. The cast and crew were working deep in the rainforests near Puerto Vallarta in Mexico, surrounded by thick vegetation, wild terrain, and yes, swarms of bloodthirsty leeches hiding in the undergrowth. Every day, the actors would trek through dense jungle wearing heavy gear and carrying prop weapons, all while trying to look like fearless commandos. What you do not see on screen is that between takes, they were constantly checking their boots, legs, and arms for leeches. These little parasites would latch on in the mud, drop from trees, or sneak into socks and clothing. No one was safe. Some crew members reportedly had to keep salt or lighters handy just to remove them quickly without getting bitten too badly. Arnold Schwarzenegger and the rest of the cast had to stay focused on intense action scenes and dramatic moments while dealing with the real-life horror of tiny creatures sucking their blood. It was not just a gross inconvenience either. The leeches made shooting physically exhausting and mentally draining. Imagine trying to deliver a serious line while wondering if something is crawling up your pant leg. Despite the high-tech look of the movie, it was made in brutal, primitive conditions. The jungle was not just a backdrop, it was a character of its own, and sometimes a hostile one. The threat of the Predator was fiction. The leeches, on the other hand, were very real, and they were relentless. It added discomfort to the production that never made it to the screen, but definitely left a mark. Number 6. Bill Duke improvised the shaving scene. One of the most unforgettable character moments in Predator comes from Bill Duke, who played the intense and quiet Mac. There is a strange and oddly hypnotic scene where he slowly shaves his face with a disposable razor in the middle of the jungle. He is not in front of a mirror. He is not using shaving cream. He just drags the blade across his skin over and over, even after there is clearly nothing left to shave. The pressure builds until the razor snaps in his hand. It is eerie, personal, and it was completely improvised. That scene was not in the script. Bill Duke came up with it on set as a way to show Mac's unraveling state of mind after the loss of his friend Blaine. The shaving became a nervous tick, a way for Mac to keep his focus while everything around him was turning chaotic and deadly. It gave audiences a glimpse into the character's psychological stress without needing a single line of dialogue. The simplicity of it is what makes it so effective. It is just a man and a razor, but in Duke's hands, it becomes a moment of real tension. That little improvisation turned into one of the most talked about scenes in the film. Number 5. Carl Weathers worked out. In Secret, Weathers played Dylan, the slick CIA operative with a sharp suit and an even sharper handshake. He was already known for his impressive physique thanks to his role as Apollo Creed in the Rocky series, but when it came time to stand next to Arnold Schwarzenegger and a cast full of muscle-bound action stars, even Carl Weathers felt the pressure. According to behind-the-scenes accounts, Weathers made a habit of working out in secret. He would tell the other actors that he did not need to hit the gym, claiming his physique came naturally. However, the truth was that he would sneak into the weight room early in the morning or late at night when no one else was around. He wanted to maintain his edge and keep up with the likes of Schwarzenegger and Jesse Ventura without letting on that he was putting in the extra effort. It became a kind of running joke on set. Weathers was all about projecting confidence and ease, but behind the scenes he was grinding just as hard as everyone else. The result speaks for itself. He looked every bit the part. Number 4. Kevin Peter Hall played the helicopter pilot. Most fans know Kevin Peter Hall as the Predator, the silent stalking hunter from another world who battles Arnold Schwarzenegger in one of the most iconic showdowns in action movie history. What many people do not realize is that Kevin Peter Hall also played the helicopter pilot at the very end of the film. That is right, the man inside the elaborate alien costume, buried under layers of latex and animatronics, also shows up with his actual face on screen. In the final scene, after Dutch has survived the brutal ordeal, a rescue helicopter arrives to pull him out of the jungle. The pilot who turns to look back at him is none other than Hall himself. It is a quiet blink and you miss it moment, but it is a brilliant bit of symmetry. The same actor who spent the entire film trying to murder the hero also ends up flying him to safety. The reason Hall was given that role is both practical and thoughtful. After spending weeks in a hot, heavy suit with barely any recognition, the filmmakers wanted to give him a proper on-screen appearance where audiences could actually see his face. At 7 feet 2 inches tall, Hall was hard to miss, but his characters were almost always hidden behind creature makeup. This cameo was a small but meaningful way to acknowledge his contribution. It is also a great Easter egg for fans. Once you know to look for it, the moment becomes even more special. Kevin Peter Hall was more than just the man behind the monster. He helped define one of the most iconic villains in sci-fi history, and for just a few seconds, he got to be the guy who saves the day. Number 3. They had to re-record many jungle scenes. Another lesser-known but fascinating fact about Predator is that many of the jungle scenes had to be completely re-recorded after filming. It sounds strange at first. You would think that in a movie so full of explosions, gunfire, and intense action, the sounds captured on set would be more than enough. However, the reality of filming in a real Mexican jungle was far more chaotic and unpredictable than the production team expected. The location looked perfect on camera, with dense greenery, dramatic lighting, and plenty of natural terrain to sell the illusion of an isolated and dangerous wilderness. However, when it came to sound, the jungle was a disaster. The ambient noise was overwhelming. Birds squawked at random intervals, insects buzzed constantly, and there were even problems with nearby generators and distant voices from local towns. All of it bled into the recordings. On top of that, weather conditions like wind and sudden rainstorms made capturing clean dialogue almost impossible. So once filming wrapped, the cast had to return to a studio and re-record many of their lines using a process called ADR, or Automated Dialogue Replacement. The actors had to match their dialogue perfectly to their mouth movements on screen, recreating the emotion and rhythm of the original takes. It was a long and meticulous process, but it was necessary to keep the film coherent and immersive. The result is seamless. Unless you are really looking for it, you would never guess that the words being spoken were not recorded in that same jungle. It is one of those bits of behind-the-scenes magic that makes you appreciate how much effort goes into even the smallest moments in a film. What looks raw and natural was polished in post-production with a ton of care and precision. Number 2. The iconic line, "Get to the chopper," was almost cut yes. We are talking about Arnold Schwarzenegger's legendary shout, "Get to the chopper." It is one of those phrases that has lived far beyond the movie itself. People quote it, parody it, and even remix it into songs. However, believe it or not, there was a moment during editing when that line was nearly trimmed down or removed entirely. At the time, no one realized it would become so famous. It was just another action command in the middle of a tense scene, where Arnold's character Dutch is urging Anna to escape before the predator closes in. Still, the original delivery was so intense, and Arnold's accent gave it this unique rhythm and punch that it stuck out. Some producers reportedly felt the line was a little over the top and considered cutting around it to keep the pacing tight. Thankfully, cooler heads prevailed. The line stayed in, and over the years it became one of the most quoted moments in action movie history. Number 1. The Predator design was inspired by African tribal masks and lizards. That unforgettable look with the mandibles, the dreadlock-like tendrils, and the bio-mask that seems to stare into your soul was not just dreamed up out of nowhere. The final design for the Predator was actually inspired by African tribal masks and the skin texture and movement of lizards, and the journey to get there was a wild one. While on a flight with director James Cameron, Winston was sketching ideas and mentioned he was thinking about mandibles. Cameron casually said he had always wanted to see a creature with mandibles. That tiny comment stuck. Winston looked at traditional African tribal masks for inspiration, studying the way they exaggerated facial features to create expressions of power, mystery, and fear. He wanted the Predator to look ancient and intelligent but also brutal and primal. He combined the bold geometry of the masks with the scaly, leathery textures of lizards and reptiles, giving the creature an earthy, organic feel. Those dreadlock-like appendages were the final touch, drawn from both tribal aesthetics and the natural world. The result was instantly iconic. The Predator looked like something ancient that had been stalking prey for centuries. It felt believable, yet alien. That mix of tribal art and cold-blooded nature is what made it so unforgettable. Which of these facts did you know before now? Let us know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, like, share, and subscribe to this channel for more interesting facts about your favorite movies. Before you go, watch the other videos on your screen.